The burden of the gods was too great, the work too hard. Let humans bear the burden of the gods. The Epic of Atrahasis, Mesopotamia. What if the ancient gods were more than just myths? Is it time to rewrite human history? References to the Anunnaki come from cuneiform tablets that recount Sumerian mythology. They are depicted as gods who shaped the world and ruled over the earth. In the Epic of Atrahasis, a Babylonian epic poem, the high gods determine fate, while the lower gods, the Igigi, perform physical labor. The Anunnaki are also mentioned in the Enuma Elish, another Babylonian creation myth. They appear in the Epic of Gilgamesh, the oldest known epic, and in the Sumerian myth, the descent of Inanna to the underworld, the Sumerian king list, and other myths, texts, and inscriptions. Did these writings refer to the Anunnaki as beings who came from other worlds? Could there be a link between the gods and entities of ancient Mesopotamia and the deities and beings of other ancestral cultures? Is there archaeological evidence that suggests extraterrestrial beings visited Earth? Or are these symbolic representations mythical or supernatural creatures, as mainstream scholars maintain? What follows are highly controversial assumptions. They offer a view that differs entirely from official historical narratives. We present this as an intellectual exploration meant to keep your mind open to new ideas. What you choose to accept or reject is up to you. You must draw your own conclusions. As the philosopher Aristotle once said, "It is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it." The Nibiru catastrophe and their arrival. The term Anunnaki originates from Sumerian mythology, a civilization that flourished in Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq, around 4,500 years ago. The word Anunnaki comes from the Sumerian Anunna, meaning offspring of An. An was the Sumerian sky god and considered the father of the gods. The word Ki generally translates to earth, highlighting a connection between the heavens and our world. According to author Zecharia Sitchin's interpretations of ancient Sumerian tablets, the Anunnaki were extraterrestrial beings who lived on a planet called Nibiru. They faced a severe crisis due to catastrophic environmental degradation. Nibiru was suffering from a devastating climate disaster, with its atmosphere deteriorating at an alarming rate. The only solution the Anunnaki saw was to find a material capable of restoring their atmosphere. They discovered that gold, when dispersed as fine particles in the atmosphere, could reflect and scatter solar radiation, acting as a protective shield. In a desperate attempt to save their planet, the Anunnaki began exploring other celestial bodies in search of this precious metal. They eventually arrived on Earth in spacecraft capable of long interplanetary journeys. These craft used anti-gravity propulsion, allowing them to travel vast distances between Nibiru and Earth. At first, their arrival struck fear across the Mesopotamian region, which would later become the cradle of some of the world's earliest civilizations. The Anunnaki arrived around 450,000 years ago, at a time when Earth was inhabited by various types of hominids, such as Homo habilis and Homo erectus. The Epic of Atrahasis describes how the Igigi, the lesser gods, were the first to labor in the mines. When the gods were man-like, their toil was grievous, their work heavy. Exhausted by the harsh conditions and overwhelming workload, the Igigi rebelled against the Anunnaki. They could no longer endure the physical strain. They destroyed their tools and surrounded the house of Enlil, one of the most powerful Anunnaki gods, demanding an end to their suffering. In response to this uprising, the Anunnaki decided to create humans to take over the hard labor previously performed by the Igigi. Humans were created by mixing clay with the blood of a sacrificed god, giving them a divine essence. The purpose of humanity was to work, allowing the Igigi and Anunnaki to rest. This is how the Anunnaki created humans, according to the Epic of Atrahasis from Mesopotamian mythology. Genetic engineering of primate ancestors. According to Zecharia Sitchin's modern hypothesis, the Anunnaki did not create humans from clay but used advanced genetic technology. They selected a primitive hominid species already living on Earth, possibly Homo erectus, and genetically modified its DNA to create a new species, Homo sapiens. Sitchin proposed that this genetic modification could explain the superior intellectual and social abilities of modern humans. Compared to other species, the first human created by the Anunnaki was named Adamu. He was the first being to possess advanced biology and higher intelligence, making him suitable for the tasks the Anunnaki required. The name Adamu is linked to the word Adama, which means earth or clay in Hebrew. Similarly, in the biblical book of Genesis, it is described how God created Adam from the dust of the earth. Then the Lord God formed man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being. God did not create Adam to work, but rather to be the first inhabitant of the Garden of Eden. In the Bible, the tree of knowledge symbolizes forbidden wisdom. By eating its fruit, Adam and Eve gained the knowledge of good and evil, which led to their expulsion. Their banishment from Eden prevented them from eating from the tree of life and living forever. On the other hand, Zecharia Sitchin interpreted Eden as a site where the Anunnaki established a base of operations, located in what is now known as Mesopotamia. The Sumerian Eden may have been a kind of laboratory where early humans were created and genetically modified. Enki, one of the Anunnaki leaders, supported granting knowledge to humans, while his brother Enlil opposed it, fearing that humans might become too powerful. Once the early humans were created, they were allowed to reproduce and form a large workforce. Thus, humanity took over mining and other tasks that had previously been performed by the lesser gods. The Anunnaki had a highly hierarchical society. They were led by a king and other members of the royal family who made decisions regarding their civilization. In Sitchin's accounts, Anu was the king of the Anunnaki. As the supreme ruler, he had the final say in political and scientific matters. Family disputes among Anu's sons, especially between Enki and Enlil, influenced both the Anunnaki and humanity. Enki, known as the god of wisdom, was the genetic engineer behind the creation of humans. On the other hand, Enlil was a leader who oversaw the enforcement of Anunnaki laws. In addition to resource extraction, the Anunnaki shared knowledge with humanity in fields such as astronomy, mathematics, architecture and agriculture. According to Sitchin, their advanced technology and astonishing longevity led humans to revere them as gods. The Anunnaki are described as giant beings compared to humans, with an estimated height ranging from 10 to 16 feet. Their massive stature gave them an imposing presence, likely contributing to their godlike status. They were believed to have large, elongated skulls. Their eyes are often depicted as piercing, giving them an aura of wisdom. In some accounts, they are described as having golden or bronze-coloured skin, linked to their supposed divine or extraterrestrial origins. They are frequently portrayed wearing elaborate garments made of materials unfamiliar to humans of that time. These are often depicted as armour or robes with apparent technological features, such as energy manipulation. Although their form was humanoid, they were also described with features that hinted at an extraterrestrial nature. The wings shown in some Mesopotamian carvings gave them a divine aura, suggesting an ability to travel between dimensions or planets. Some speculate that the Anunnaki used advanced technology to simulate powers such as levitation, telepathy, and time manipulation. For thousands of years, the Anunnaki worked alongside humans, planting the seeds of knowledge and civilization. However, as with all cycles, their time on Earth came to an end. Conditions on Nibiru began to stabilize, reducing the urgent need for gold extraction. Internal conflicts and challenges to the authority of Anunnaki leaders created a climate of discord. Tensions, especially between Enki and Enlil, eventually reached a breaking point. The ships that once hovered above Earth began to depart gradually, signaling a slow withdrawal. The great gods who once walked among humans and were worshipped as deities began to retreat. The Anunnaki's technology became fragmented, and their teachings transformed into the myths and legends we know today. According to Sitchin's theory, when the Anunnaki left Earth, they did not entirely relinquish control over human affairs. Instead of ruling directly, they appointed human kings to serve as representatives of their divine authority. The Sumerian tablets, interpreted through the lens of the Anunnaki narrative, describe how power was granted to individuals who became the first human kings. These rulers were chosen to govern in the name of the gods. Their role was to follow the Anunnaki's will, maintain order, and ensure its enforcement. In some cases, it was said that kings were direct descendants of the Anunnaki, born from unions between gods and humans. The concept of divine blood continued throughout ancient civilizations, where kings were often regarded as demigods. This idea is connected to the Sumerian king list, the Great Flood, and the rebirth of humanity. The Sumerian king list, inscribed on clay tablets in cuneiform script, was discovered at various archaeological sites in ancient Mesopotamia. The list outlines the succession of Sumerian kings, stretching from legendary eras into historical periods. According to the list, some kings ruled for incredibly long periods, sometimes thousands of years, before a catastrophic event occurred. Alulim is recognized as the first human king, ruling after kingship descended from heaven. According to the Anunnaki hypothesis, which suggests the presence of extraterrestrial beings, this moment represents when authority was handed over to humans. The list states that Alulim ruled Sumer for an astonishing 28,800 years. His successor, Alalgar, ruled the same city for 26,000 years, while Enmenluana ruled Bad Tibira for 43,200 years. The reigns of the pre-flood kings lasted for thousands of years, with extraordinarily long lifespans. Some researchers suggest these rulers were either Anunnaki themselves or human extraterrestrial hybrids, which could explain their longevity. Because the Anunnaki supposedly came from a planet with a different time cycle, their lifespans were much longer than those of humans. According to Zecharia Sitchin's interpretations of Sumerian texts, the Anunnaki grew weary of humans due to their growing numbers and disobedience. As a solution, they decided to unleash a flood to wipe out humanity. However, the god Enki opposed this decision and chose to save one man by giving him instructions to build a survival vessel. Ziusudra is considered the earliest known hero in Mesopotamian flood legends. Enki warned Ziusudra about the god's plan to send a flood to destroy humanity and guided him to build a boat. The legend of Ziusudra later inspired the Epic of Gilgamesh, in which Utnapishtim tells Gilgamesh how he survived a great deluge. Following divine orders, Utnapishtim built a boat and brought aboard his family and animals of every kind. When the flood began, waters covered the land for 7 days and nights, destroying everything in their path. The floodwaters rose so high that the gods themselves were terrified and fled to the heavens, afraid of the very storm they had unleashed. As the waters receded, Utnapishtim released a dove and a swallow, both of which returned. Later, he released a raven that did not return, indicating it had found dry land. The biblical version of the flood appears in Genesis chapters 6 through 9. Due to the wickedness of the earth, God decided to destroy humanity with a great flood. Only Noah and his family, who lived according to his commandments, were spared. God instructed Noah to build an ark, giving him detailed specifications for its dimensions. Unlike Utnapishtim, Noah endured a longer flood. Rain fell for 40 days and 40 nights. Noah released a raven that did not return. He then sent out a dove, which came back with an olive branch, signaling that the waters had receded. After the flood, Sitchin recounts that Earth was left in ruins, prompting the Anunnaki to reconsider their actions. They chose not to completely wipe out humanity, but instead taught the survivors how to rebuild civilization. The Anunnaki also decided to reduce human lifespans by genetically modifying their DNA again, in order to limit longevity and prevent overpopulation. Additionally, humans lost some of the advanced physical and cognitive abilities initially granted to them by the Anunnaki. This made it easier to control the human population after the flood and reduced the likelihood of rebellion. The flood represented a clear division between the era of the long-reigning early kings and the shorter reigns that followed. Among the post-flood rulers was Enmebaragesi of Kish, who reigned for 900 years, and Gilgamesh of Uruk, who ruled for 126 years. Similarly, in the Bible, the pre-flood patriarchs, like Methuselah and Noah, lived for centuries, while later generations had much shorter lifespans. According to the Anunnaki hypothesis, the Mesopotamian flood legends reflect the Anunnaki leaders' intent to eliminate humanity. However, conventional interpretations by archaeologists and scholars suggest these flood stories are based on widespread floods or sudden climate changes. Gilgamesh, the king of Uruk, is the central figure in one of humanity's oldest epic poems, the Epic of Gilgamesh. He is portrayed as a superhuman being, divine and semi-human gigantic stature and supernatural strength. In the epic, Gilgamesh's mother is the goddess Ninsun, associated with fertility and dreams. According to Anunnaki theories, this divine lineage suggests that his mother was one of the Anunnaki, while his father was human. Gilgamesh's towering height, as depicted in ancient reliefs, is attributed to his Anunnaki heritage. One of Gilgamesh's main motivations in the poem is his quest for immortality. Despite being a powerful king with divine attributes, he must confront his partial humanity, which makes him mortal. During his journey, he meets Utnapishtim, the survivor of the flood, in the Babylonian version of the story. Utnapishtim tells him that immortality is not a gift granted to everyone, but reveals the existence of a plant at the bottom of the sea that can restore youth. Gilgamesh retrieves the plant, but a serpent steals it, leading him to realize that true immortality lies in the legacy one leaves behind. The Anunnaki's giant structures. According to the ancient astronaut theory, the Anunnaki arrived on Earth about 450,000 years ago. They supposedly remained on the planet until the Great Flood, which is believed to have occurred around 12,000 years ago, meaning their stay lasted nearly 438,000 years. It is believed that their advanced technology enabled them to construct massive structures like the pyramids. These buildings are thought to be part of a global system that includes other installations found across various regions of the world. Zecharia Sitchin proposed that the pyramids served purposes beyond mere tombs or monuments. He suggested they were used for scientific and technological functions, such as navigational markers or energy management centers. Some argue that the Anunnaki either supervised or directly oversaw their construction, given the extraordinary precision and advanced knowledge required. One theory about the Giza pyramids suggests that they are aligned with the constellation Orion. In the case of the Great Pyramid, archaeological studies have shown that its faces are precisely aligned with the cardinal directions, north, south, east, and west. One of the key arguments in favor of the Anunnaki theory is the immense difficulty of constructing the Great Pyramid using the primitive technology of that era. Archaeologists estimate that the Great Pyramid was built over approximately 20 years during the reign of Pharaoh Khufu. The pyramid consists of around 2 million blocks, ranging from small limestone pieces to massive granite stones used in the internal chambers. The average weight of the blocks is 2.5 tons, while the granite blocks in the king's chamber weigh up to 70 tons. To complete the pyramid within 20 years, it is estimated that around 800 blocks had to be placed each day. This means that Egyptian workers would have needed to transport and set this enormous number of blocks daily, requiring incredible logistics and coordination. According to modern alternative theories, the Anunnaki may have used anti-gravity technology or some form of free energy to move and position the blocks. Adding to the mystery linking the Anunnaki to the pyramids is the Great Sphinx of Giza, located in front of the pyramids. The Sphinx has puzzled archaeologists due to its age and the lack of clear historical records concerning its construction. Traditional theories suggest it was built around 4,500 years ago during the reign of Pharaoh Khafre. However, Some theorists believe it was constructed much earlier, either by the Anunnaki or under their supervision, serving as a guardian of the secrets of this extraterrestrial civilization. Massive ancient structures on other continents. In other continents, massive ancient structures can also be found. The Great Pyramid of Cholula, the largest pyramid by volume in the world, is another frequently mentioned structure. Its size and complexity are said to suggest knowledge beyond what local cultures of the time would have possessed. Meanwhile, the city of Teotihuacan near Mexico City was designed with precise astronomical alignment. The Avenue of the Dead, the city's central axis, appears to align with the sun's movement on specific days of the year. Additionally, the pyramids of the sun and moon are directly connected to the solar calendar and astronomical alignment. The inhabitants of Teotihuacan had a major influence on surrounding cultures. Although the Aztecs rose to power centuries later, they held Teotihuacan in deep reverence. They believed it was the place where the gods created the sun and moon and called it the city of the gods. Are there connections between the Anunnaki and other ancient civilizations? Mesopotamian accounts, such as the Atrahasis epic, describe how the Anunnaki created humans to serve them. In Egyptian tradition, the god Khnum, the divine potter, is said to have fashioned humans from clay, forming from the clay of life. The ancient Egyptians believed that the pharaohs, regarded as direct descendants of the gods, acted as intermediaries between humans and the divine. This concept of divine kingship was also found in Mesopotamia, where rulers governed on behalf of the Anunnaki. The belief in a divine connection between rulers and gods may have originated from a shared myth or direct Sumerian influence on the Egyptians. Another link between the Anunnaki and Egyptian gods lies in the similarities between some of their deities. Anu, the Sumerian god of the sky and father of the gods, has a counterpart in Ra, the Egyptian sun god and creator of all gods. Enlil, god of air, wind and storms, corresponds to Shu, the Egyptian god of air who separates the sky from the earth. Set, who shares attributes related to weather and natural forces, is another possible counterpart. Enki, the Sumerian god of water, wisdom, creation and magic, can be compared to Thoth, the Egyptian god of wisdom, writing and magic. Ptah, the Egyptian creator god and patron of craftsmen, may also be considered an equivalent to Enki due to his role in creation and craftsmanship. Similarly, the depiction of gods with hybrid or animal-like features exists in both cultures. The Egyptians portrayed deities with animal heads, such as Horus and Anubis. Meanwhile, the Anunnaki were depicted as human-like beings with majestic features and symbols of divine power. Egyptian pharaohs, such as Ramses II, were often portrayed as gigantic, almost supernatural figures. Some proponents of the Anunnaki theories argue that these pharaohs may have had genetic links to the gods. Moreover, both the Sumerians and Egyptians possessed remarkable knowledge of astronomy. The Sumerians developed star maps and calendars based on celestial movements, allowing them to predict astronomical events. They also created a sexagesimal or base 60 numerical system, which underlies the way we measure time today. The Egyptians recognized constellations such as Orion, pioneered a 365-day calendar, and developed mathematics, geometry, and medicine. Their fascination with the heavens and celestial bodies was tied to the belief that gods originated from the stars. The quest for immortality. The pursuit of immortality is another shared theme between Sumerian and Egyptian cultures. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, the king yearns for eternal life, while Egyptian pharaohs built elaborate tombs to secure their place in the afterlife. For Egyptians, the afterlife was as significant as earthly existence, and preparing for it was central to their religious beliefs. In the ancient cultures of the Americas, additional similarities can be drawn. Anu can be compared to Itzamna, the Mayan god, or Ometeotl, the Aztec god, both considered celestial creator gods. Enlil may relate to the Mayan god Huracan or the Aztec god Tlaloc, both associated with weather and storms. Enki aligns well with Quetzalcoatl, a deity worshipped by the Olmec, Maya and Aztec civilizations, linked to wind, wisdom, knowledge, creation, and sometimes the planet Venus. At La Venta, an Olmec site and one of the oldest cultures in the Americas, there is an early depiction of Quetzalcoatl holding a cube in his right hand. Interestingly, this resembles the cubes held in the left hands of winged genies in Mesopotamian art. The Nephilim, the Book of Enoch, and the Anunnaki, a connection or coincidence? The Book of Enoch is an ancient text excluded from most biblical canons except for the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. It describes apocalyptic visions and tales of fallen angels and giants. The text recounts the stories of Enoch, a biblical patriarch who was taken to the heavens, where he received visions of the universe, the divine order, and humanity's fate. Some theories interpret these experiences as encounters with the Anunnaki, suggesting that these beings took Enoch with them. Could it be that the Anunnaki transported Enoch aboard a spacecraft to a distant planet, revealing to him different parts of the cosmos? The Book of Enoch also mentions the Watchers, celestial beings who married human women, resulting in a race of giants called the Nephilim. Because of this act, the Watchers were considered fallen angels, hunted by angels loyal to God. These fallen angels shared advanced knowledge, skills and technology with humans. Their offspring, the Nephilim, were described as physically massive and possessing extraordinary strength. This physical dominance gave them an aura of superiority over humans, similar to descriptions of the Anunnaki. However, the Nephilim eventually became so destructive and dangerous that their existence was deemed intolerable, necessitating their extermination to restore order. A cleansing of the earth from evil. Because of the corruption brought by the fallen angels and the Nephilim, God decided to send the Great Flood. As physical beings, the Nephilim perished along with the other corrupt humans who were not aboard Noah's Ark. This story parallels the Anunnaki flood narrative in the Atrahasis epic and other ancient flood myths. Did the Hebrews encounter Mesopotamian stories and incorporate them into their culture and eventually into the Bible? Was there a catastrophic flood in this region that inspired these tales? Could the Nephilim be equivalent to the offspring of the Anunnaki and humans? Secrets of human DNA. In 1973, Francis Crick, along with biochemist Leslie Orgel, proposed the theory of directed panspermia. They developed this idea out of amazement at the complexity and precision of the genetic code. Given the conditions of early Earth, they concluded that life was unlikely to have arisen spontaneously from inorganic molecules. They noted that the genetic code is nearly universal among all living organisms, suggesting a possible common origin. This similarity led them to consider the theory of directed panspermia, the idea that an extraterrestrial civilization sent microorganisms to Earth to seed life. Furthermore, the complexity of the genetic code might point to intelligent design rather than being the result of random processes. Crick and Orgel did not claim this theory as fact, but rather presented it as a hypothesis to address the challenges in theories about the origin of life. Could the idea of directed panspermia be connected to the Anunnaki hypothesis of extraterrestrial existence? According to paleoanthropology, Homo sapiens first appeared about 300,000 years ago during the Pleistocene epoch. For tens of thousands of years, humans behaved much like higher apes. But between 50,000 and 100,000 years ago, humanity experienced a dramatic leap in cognitive abilities, technology and culture, an event known as the Cognitive Revolution or Great Leap Forward. There's no definitive explanation, but it may have been driven by genetic mutations, social adaptation or environmental factors. Proponents of the ancient astronaut theory argue that these beings, the Anunnaki, facilitated this sudden development in humanity. According to this theory, the Anunnaki combined their DNA with that of early hominids, leading to the emergence of early humans. It's claimed that this intervention granted humans enhanced brain development, as well as the ability to use tools and form complex societies. This proposal, which claims the Anunnaki influenced human DNA, lacks support from modern genetic science. However, certain curiosities in human biology have led some researchers to wonder whether there's more to our evolutionary story. One subject of great interest in genetic research is human chromosome 2. At some point in our evolutionary history, two ancestral chromosomes fused to form chromosome 2, a feature absent in other primates. Chimpanzees, gorillas and orangutans all have 24 pairs of chromosomes, while humans have only 23. Some theorists suggest this chromosomal fusion may have been a deliberate act by the Anunnaki to accelerate human evolution. Moreover, about 98% of human DNA does not code for proteins, meaning its exact purpose remains unclear. Research suggests it may have regulatory or structural functions, though its full role is still under debate, fueling speculation. Some theorists propose that this DNA holds hidden traces of genetic manipulation by the Anunnaki. Perhaps these beings left markers within our DNA, which, if ever decoded, could reveal details about our extraterrestrial origins. Are there traces of the Anunnaki on Earth? In Canyonlands National Park, Utah, strange figures created by the Fremont and ancestral Puebloan peoples have been discovered. These are believed to represent rituals or spiritual guides, although their exact meaning remains unknown. Particularly striking are the anthropomorphic figures in Sego Canyon, with hollow eyes and elongated bodies. The prevailing view is that they depict shamanic visions or supernatural beings. In 1927, local archaeologists discovered these petroglyphs while exploring this area in southern Peru. According to mainstream archaeology, these geoglyphs were created by the Nazca civilization, an ancient Peruvian culture. However, proponents of ancient astronaut theories argue that they were made as signals for visitors from other worlds. They claim these massive figures and lines functioned as landing strips or reference points for spacecraft. Among the most mysterious is a shape known as the astronaut. These figures resemble the Palpa geoglyphs, first observed in 1926. According to studies, some are attributed to the Nazca, but most were created by the Paracas and Topara cultures. Some resemble small figures or mythical beings, while others appear to be dressed in garments, something resembling a helmet with two extensions. These small statues, discovered in the ancient city of Ur in Mesopotamia, belong to the Ubaid culture, which is considered a direct predecessor of the Sumerian civilization. The statues depict human-like figures with elongated faces, large eyes and pointed heads. They are often shown in positions of authority or seated on thrones, and were likely used for ritualistic or religious purposes. From an archaeological perspective, they are considered symbols of beings associated with early cults, while modern authors often link them to the Anunnaki. In northwestern Australia, the Wandjina figures are prominent in Aboriginal culture. These are considered ancestral spiritual beings who descended from the sky to create the earth. They are depicted with large heads, prominent eyes, no visible mouths, and halos around their heads. The Wandjina are believed to be keepers of knowledge and supernatural powers, thought to control rain and storms. Tassili Anajer, located in the Sahara Desert, is home to a collection of rock art dating back nearly 10,000 years. The artworks include stylized human forms with large heads and elongated headgear. Some theorists describe these images as representations of extraterrestrials or ancient gods, although archaeologists generally agree that they depict hunting rituals. In the caves of Valcamonica, human-like figures appear with what look like round helmets or head coverings, with rays emanating from their heads. Some have interpreted these figures as beings wearing spacesuits, but the general consensus identifies them as warriors or shamans. As for the Vimanas, they are flying vehicles mentioned in ancient Indian texts. They are described as machines used by gods and celestial beings to travel across the earth and sky. According to these accounts, the Vimanas were capable of performing astonishing maneuvers and flying at incredible speeds. Modern interpretations compare them to spacecraft or highly advanced aircraft. In some stories, Vimanas are said to have been equipped with powerful weapons capable of emitting rays or producing fire. Do all these statues and prehistoric artworks suggest an ancient presence of extraterrestrials or the Anunnaki? There is no evidence to support this, and archaeology dismisses such claims. However, everyone is free to form their own ideas. Regardless, these artifacts are fascinating and deserve exploration and study. Is Nibiru the ninth planet? The planet Nibiru, often considered the home of the Anunnaki, is commonly viewed as a myth. However, NASA and the scientific community have recently discussed the possibility of a ninth planet, referred to as Planet 9. Could this planet be the home of the Anunnaki? Planet 9 was proposed to explain the unusual orbits of some Kuiper Belt objects which cannot be accounted for by current solar system models. These strange orbits may be influenced by the gravitational pull of a large, distant planet. Calculations suggest that Planet 9 is about 10 times the mass of Earth and would have a much longer orbital period. While Earth completes its orbit around the Sun in 365 days, Planet 9 would take between 10,000 and 20,000 years, following a highly elliptical path. If it exists, it would be located at an extremely distant point from the Sun, far beyond Neptune's orbit. However, Planet 9 has not yet been directly observed. Its existence is inferred only through calculations and anomalies in the orbits of other celestial bodies. Are the Anunnaki or spacecraft mentioned in biblical texts? The idea that biblical texts are records of encounters with extraterrestrial beings is a modern theory that has sparked significant debate. According to this interpretation, some biblical accounts describe interactions with alien beings or spacecraft that ancient civilizations mistook for gods. A compelling example is the Book of Ezekiel. The vision begins when Ezekiel, by the river Kebar, witnesses a series of celestial phenomena. He describes 4 living creatures, each with 4 faces: human, lion, ox and eagle, and 4 wings. In Ezekiel 1:15 he says, "As I looked at the living creatures, I saw a wheel on the ground beside each creature with its 4 faces. Next to them, he noticed something even more astonishing: wheels within wheels that moved in all directions without turning." Ezekiel also described the sound of the creature's wings as the roar of a mighty army. Above the creatures and the wheels there appeared something like a platform, and on it a shining throne with a radiant figure seated upon it. Supporters of ancient astronaut theories argue that these descriptions are primitive interpretations of spacecraft or unidentified flying objects. In traditional biblical context, however, this vision is seen as a spiritual depiction of glory. The story of Enoch's abduction, as described in Genesis chapter 5, verse 24, is another mysterious passage in the Bible. It states, "Enoch walked with God, then he was no more, because God took him." Though it consists of only one line in the Bible, it has sparked centuries of speculation about what actually happened in this event. Enoch, a descendant of Adam through Seth, is one of the few figures in the Bible who did not experience death. Unlike the other patriarchs, whose deaths are clearly mentioned, the text simply says that Enoch disappeared because God took him. In Judeo-Christian tradition, this abduction is understood as a divine act, signifying Enoch's extraordinary purity and devotion to God. In more speculative modern interpretations, the phrase "God took him" is believed to suggest an advanced technological civilization, interacting with humans in ancient times. In 2 Kings, we find the dramatic story of the prophet Elijah being taken up into heaven. Elijah was walking with his disciple Elisha when suddenly the sky opened and a chariot of fire with horses of fire appeared. 2 Kings states, "As they were walking and talking, a chariot of fire and horses of fire appeared and separated the two of them, and Elijah went up to heaven in a whirlwind." In religious interpretations, the chariot of fire symbolizes the glory of God. However, some contemporary researchers suggest that this may have been a reference to unidentified flying objects or spacecraft observed by ancient people who lacked the vocabulary to describe such phenomena. The star that guided the Magi to the birthplace of Jesus is another enduring mystery of Christmas. The Magi, coming from the east, saw this star as a sign that led them to search for the newborn King of the Jews. It was described as going ahead of them and stopping above the place where the child was. Matthew chapter 2 verse 9 says, "The star they had seen when it rose went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was." This description has led to speculation that the star exhibited controlled movement, as if it were guided by intelligence. This idea, though controversial, suggests that advanced beings may have influenced key events in human history. The appearance of the pillar of cloud and fire in the book of Exodus plays a central role in the Israelites' journey to the Promised Land. It is portrayed as a guide accompanying them, appearing as a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. Exodus chapter 13 verses 21 to 22 say, "By day the Lord went ahead of them in a pillar of cloud to guide them on their way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light." This pillar was a majestic sight, a towering vertical structure visible in the barren desert landscape. From a religious perspective, the pillar of cloud and fire is seen as a miraculous act of God, symbolizing his constant presence with the Israelites. In modern times, it has been suggested that the Israelites may have witnessed a form of aerial technology or spacecraft that ancient people could not comprehend. In Revelation chapter 4, verse 1, the Apostle John describes a series of astonishing visions that seem to go beyond human understanding. Among them is the image of a door opened in heaven. A voice, sounding like a trumpet, calls to John, "Come up here, and I will show you what must take place after this." John is taken through this door, and what he witnesses is extraordinary. The first thing he describes is a throne with someone sitting on it, surrounded by a radiant glow. The scene becomes even more awe-inspiring as he mentions lightning, sounds and thunder emanating from the throne. In front of the throne is a sea of glass, giving the vision a surreal quality. John sees around the throne 24 smaller thrones, on which sit 24 elders, dressed in white robes with golden crowns. Additionally, he describes 4 living creatures around the throne, covered in eyes and with faces resembling a lion, an ox, a man. From a traditional theological perspective, John's visions are seen as a direct revelation of heaven, where the throne of God is visible. In modern interpretations, the open door in the sky is viewed as a portal, possibly a form of interdimensional transport or even an entrance to a spacecraft. The throne surrounded by lightning and thunder could be interpreted as advanced technology beyond ancient understanding, perhaps generated by a machine or a ship. The 4 living creatures, covered in eyes and multiple wings, may be seen as non-human entities, drones or machines. Some have interpreted the arrangement of the 24 elders on thrones as a hierarchical structure in an advanced society, or even a kind of galactic council. These theories are certainly bold, yet they do not diminish the profound and awe-inspiring nature of these biblical passages. Lost Anunnaki technology? One of the most intriguing theories suggests that the Anunnaki harnessed free energy, an unlimited power source available anywhere on the planet. This theory proposes that they used this energy to operate their machines, spacecraft, and massive structures. Supporters of this idea point to Egypt's step pyramid of Djoser and other megalithic stone buildings scattered around the world as potential energy sources. They believe the Anunnaki shared this knowledge with humanity, but it was eventually lost over time. Another related speculation is that the Anunnaki possessed the ability to teleport or use interdimensional portals. Some interpretations suggest the Anunnaki traveled from Nibiru aboard advanced spacecraft capable of covering vast distances quickly. Others propose that the Anunnaki created portals to allow for instant travel between dimensions. These portals may also have been used to move between parallel universes or realms invisible to the human eye. Such technology could explain ancient myths of gates to the underworld found in various cultures. In Mesopotamian mythology, the underworld, known as Irkalla, was a subterranean realm ruled by the goddess Ereshkigal. To enter this world, the dead had to pass through 7 gates, a system linking the world of the living to another plane of existence. In ancient Rome and Greece, belief in gates to the underworld, called plutoniums, suggests there may have been physical entrances to realms of the dead. In Maya mythology, Xibalba was the underworld, accessible through underground caves in the jungle. Some theorists suggest these may have been ancient locations of dimensional portals manipulated by the Anunnaki. The ancient Egyptians also believed in an underworld called Duat, which could be reached through hidden gates. To attain the afterlife, deceased pharaohs had to pass through 12 gates, each guarded by deities and protectors. Another technology attributed to the Anunnaki is time manipulation. This ability may have allowed them to accomplish feats such as constructing massive structures in incredibly short periods of time. Sumerian and Babylonian architecture is considered by some to be evidence of the Anunnaki's technological influence on daily life in ancient Mesopotamia. Though not as large as the pyramids of Giza, the ziggurats were towering structures that required advanced knowledge of engineering and materials. Some have interpreted their tiered design as a means to facilitate spacecraft landings. Several ziggurats reached impressive heights for their time, making them visible from great distances across the Mesopotamian plains. For this reason, some theorists propose they served as visual markers for spacecraft, like landing beacons. If the Anunnaki did possess advanced technology, one lingering question remains: what happened to it? One theory suggests that upon returning to Nibiru, the knowledge the Anunnaki had shared with humanity gradually faded away. Over time, people lost the ability to understand these tools and techniques, which then transformed into myths and legends. The loss of technological knowledge is not new in history. Other ancient civilizations developed technologies that were later forgotten, such as Greek fire, Damascus steel, the Antikythera mechanism, and Roman concrete. We recognize that the possibilities discussed in this chapter may be hard to believe, but it is our responsibility to present them so that each individual can form their own opinion. Could Anunnaki relics still exist in Antarctica? Antarctica remains one of the least explored places on Earth. It was officially discovered in the early 19th century. However, a map drawn in 1531 by mathematician and cartographer Oronce Fine appears to depict Antarctica, showing southern Africa to the left and South America below. Similarly, a 16th century map by Piri Reis also shows a landmass in the south. Did Fine or Piri Reis have knowledge of the geography of Antarctica? According to historians, they had no means of knowing much about the continent. At the time, it was common to invent islands or geographic details. Specifically, these maps seem to be based on the belief, prevalent during that era, in the existence of a southern continent to balance the northern lands. On another note, was Antarctica ever ice-free, long enough to harbour archaeological remains? During Meltwater Pulse 1b, around 15,000 years ago, fragments from a comet impact or increased solar activity likely caused a global rise in temperatures. However, this climatic shift primarily affected the ice sheets in the northern hemisphere and was not intense enough to melt the massive Antarctic ice cap. So was Antarctica ever ice-free in Earth's history? Yes, but these events occurred tens to hundreds of millions of years ago, long before the appearance of humans. The transition to icy conditions in Antarctica began around 34 million years ago, at the end of the Eocene and the beginning of the Oligocene epoch. Ice began to accumulate, and by the end of the Oligocene and into the Miocene 5 to 10 million years ago, the continent became covered with a thick ice sheet, much like it is today. About 100 million years ago, Antarctica was part of Gondwana, a supercontinent with a warm climate and rich biodiversity. In fact, fossils of ferns, conifers and other plant species have been discovered on the continent. Remains of dinosaurs have also been found in some areas. Therefore, it's possible that fossils of other unknown creatures exist and may be exceptionally well preserved. Low temperatures slow organic decay, helping to preserve bone structures and, in some cases, even soft tissues. Due to its isolation and harsh conditions, much of Antarctica remains unexplored, leaving room for speculation. In other areas previously covered by ice, such as parts of Europe and North America, archaeological remains have been discovered. For example, in the European Alps, retreating glaciers revealed significant finds, such as the Copper Age mummy Otzi. Similarly, in North America, glacial retreat uncovered artifacts from indigenous cultures that lived there before the last ice age. While it is unlikely to find ancient human artifacts in Antarctica, melting ice could reveal fossils or geological formations that reshape our understanding of Earth's history. Nevertheless, fascination with the frozen continent is immense, and future explorations may lead to astonishing discoveries. In addition, several geological and magnetic anomalies have been detected in Antarctica, sparking speculation about hidden structures beneath the ice. In the northern part of the continent, formations that appear to be aligned pyramids have been observed. However, the official explanation is that these are natural formations. In the southern part of Antarctica, cave-like structures have been spotted. Some interpret them as possible entrances to settlements of hidden terrestrial beings, human-like entities believed to have coexisted with humanity for thousands of years. Did these hidden terrestrial beings establish a base in Antarctica? Is it possible they did so in the distant past? Could an advanced, currently unknown species have once inhabited Antarctica? Do hidden terrestrial beings exist? Are they connected to the Anunnaki? Although the hidden terrestrial beings theory might sound like science fiction, it is seriously considered by some as an explanation for UFO sightings. This theory suggests that UFOs and the entities associated with them are not extraterrestrial, but rather a concealed civilization that has coexisted with humanity for millennia. According to this hypothesis, these beings and their craft have always existed on Earth, living in oceans, mountains, or underground. This species may have developed technologies far beyond ours, enabling them to remain hidden while sharing the planet. Proponents of the hidden terrestrial theory argue that ancient myths about gods or spirits stem from encounters with these beings. They point out that UFO sightings are not a recent phenomenon but have historical roots. On the other hand, proponents of the Anunnaki theory believe that most of the Anunnaki left Earth, but some remained behind. Could the hidden terrestrial beings be the Anunnaki who stayed? In some reports about beings associated with UFOs or similar phenomena, the hidden terrestrials are described as wearing tight or glowing suits. Some accounts depict them as larger-than-human figures, almost giant-like, aligning with interpretations of the Anunnaki. Are UFOs connected to the Anunnaki? UFOs are known to perform maneuvers that seem impossible for human aircraft. Testimonies exist describing craft and beings of non-human origin. Some alleged witnesses claim that spacecraft seen at secret bases were recovered from archaeological excavations. What we observe in the skies today may be the same type of craft used by beings who visited Earth in the distant past. Could it be that the Anunnaki are still observing or interacting with humanity today in a similar way to what they allegedly did in ancient times, according to various theories? The answer is that there is no concrete evidence linking the Anunnaki to modern unidentified flying objects, UFOs. While official reports do acknowledge the existence of unidentified aerial phenomena, UAPs, they do not attribute these events to extraterrestrial activity, let alone to the Anunnaki. Anunnaki weapons. Advanced technology or weapons of mass destruction. Throughout human history, tales of divine weapons have played a central role in mythology and folklore. If the Anunnaki possessed the technology to travel between planets, did they also use advanced weaponry to assert control over humanity? Ancient Mesopotamian myths often refer to sacred artifacts used by the gods to wield power. Some theorists argue that these weapons were actually advanced technologies capable of massive destruction, comparable to modern nuclear arms. Sumerian texts mention the concept of Mi, a collection of divine powers held by the gods. Enki was the keeper of the Mi, granting him authority over various aspects of the cosmos and human civilization. However, some have proposed that Mi represents advanced technological knowledge. It's also suggested that the Mi may have been a weapon of mass destruction used by Enlil in battles to dominate Earth. According to mythological accounts, Enlil employed the evil wind, a terrifying weapon described as a destructive storm that swept through cities, unleashing chaos and death. Some compare this weapon to phenomena associated with nuclear explosions or advanced climate-control technologies capable of causing disasters. An inscription mentioning Mi appears in the Sumerian poem Inanna's Descent to the Underworld. One fragment states, "She gathered the divine powers and held them in her hand." Could this be a reference to a form of advanced technology? In the Epic of Gilgamesh, another passage reads, The heavens roared and the earth roared back. Then a deep silence fell and darkness spread. Lightning flashed and fire broke out. Where the flames raged, death poured down in torrents. Could this describe a massive explosion? In Enuma Elish, a Babylonian creation myth, we find this verse. Then the Lord raised the lightning, his mighty weapon, and mounted the chariot. Could the lightning be a type of energy-based weapon, and the chariot an aerial vehicle? In the Mahabharata, an ancient Indian epic over 2,300 years old, there are frequent references to missiles, weapons, energy, battles, gods and wars. In passage 197 it states, "Then Arjuna summoned the Brahmastra, and in a moment the darkness vanished, a cool breeze began to blow, and all directions in the sky became clear and bright." Could this describe a battle involving nuclear or directed energy weapons? In depictions of ancient gods, particularly in Sumerian and Babylonian carvings, figures are often shown holding cylindrical objects. Could these be handheld energy weapons or anti-gravity devices? One notable example of the Anunnaki using weapons of mass destruction is the biblical account of the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. The story describes fire and brimstone raining down from the sky, reducing the cities to ash in a catastrophic event. While framed within Judeo-Christian religious tradition, some theorists suggest the cities were wiped out by a space-based weapon. Zecharia Sitchin cited ancient texts and geological studies of the Dead Sea region to argue for signs of a massive explosion there. However, this claim remains controversial as there is no definitive evidence to support the occurrence of such an explosion. On which planet in the Milky Way could an intelligent civilization exist? Assuming the Anunnaki or any other alien species originated from a planet in the Milky Way galaxy, we can speculate on potential locations. The Milky Way is estimated to contain between 100 billion and 400 billion stars. It is believed that most of these stars have at least one exoplanet orbiting them. This implies the existence of at least 100 billion exoplanets in the galaxy. Among these, an estimated 6 billion to 40 billion may be potentially habitable. While hundreds of exoplanets have been discovered, let's focus on a few with the highest potential for supporting life. One of the most Earth-like planets found so far is Koi-4878.01, located about 1,100 light-years away. It completes an orbit around its star every 449 days. If confirmed, the chances of life existing on its surface are considered significant. Another example is Teegarden B, only 12 light-years away. It lies within the habitable zone of its star. Proxima Centauri b is similar in size and temperature to Earth. It is classified as a potentially habitable planet with an Earth similarity index of 0.93. It is the closest potentially habitable planet to Earth, located only 4.23 light-years away. Its temperature is believed to allow the presence of liquid water, which could support chemical processes related to life. TRAPPIST-1e, located 39 light-years away, orbits an ultra-cool star and receives energy levels similar to those on Earth. Its Earth-like size suggests a rocky composition, with the potential presence of an atmosphere and a solid surface. Kepler 452b, situated 1,400 light-years away, is often referred to as Earth's older cousin. This suggests that evolutionary processes on Kepler 452b may have progressed further than those on Earth. The prophecy of the Anunnaki's return. Some interpretations of Sumerian tablets suggest the possible return of the Anunnaki, bringing irreversible changes to humanity. Their return could trigger a series of global events that would alter life on Earth forever. One possible outcome is the revelation of humanity's true origins. We may have to confront the idea that humans are not the result of natural evolution, but rather a product of genetic manipulation. This realization could spark a global existential crisis, changing our understanding of the universe. If they do return, their intentions might include correcting humanity's path, especially if they believe we have not made the progress they expected. An intriguing possibility is that the return of the Anunnaki may mark the beginning of contact between humanity and galactic civilizations. The Anunnaki might not be the only extraterrestrial beings in the universe, but rather members of a network of advanced races. However, this is not the only prophecy about intelligent beings visiting our planet. The Hopi and the Star People. The Native American Hopi tribe has a rich heritage of myths and legends passed down through generations. Among these stories is the belief in Star People, beings who descended from the sky to interact with humans. Could these beings be the Anunnaki? One of the most fascinating Hopi legends is that of the Star Children, who are said to be direct descendants of these extraterrestrial beings. These Star People shared their wisdom with humans and fathered children with tribal women, resulting in offspring with extraordinary abilities. These children were raised within the Hopi community, but the Star People would take them back to the sky at the age of 6. However, some of these children remained on Earth, growing up among the Hopi and playing important roles within the tribe. The Hopi believe these children have a vital purpose for the future of humanity to restore balance to the world. Their mission also includes preparing Earth for the arrival of a celestial being that will mark the end of the current human era and the beginning of a new age. Similarly, the Dogon people of Mali firmly believe in beings called the Nommos, who came from the Sirius star system aboard a spacecraft. This tribe possesses advanced astronomical knowledge of Sirius, the brightest star visible from Earth. They even have knowledge of Sirius B, a white dwarf star, including its density and small size, details that match modern scientific discoveries. The Dogon also mention a third object in the Sirius system, Sirius C, whose existence remains debated and unconfirmed. The Nommos are described as hybrid beings, half human, half fish, resembling aquatic creatures. According to legend, they possessed great powers and were the ones who taught the Dogon the first lessons of agriculture, astronomy, and religion. It is said these beings lived among humans for some time before returning to the cosmos. Although the Dogon's knowledge is remarkable, the accuracy of their information is questioned. Some researchers argue that the Dogon may have obtained this knowledge through contact with European explorers or missionaries who were already aware of Sirius. What do mainstream science and archaeology say? For the vast majority of scientists, the idea that the Anunnaki were extraterrestrial beings who came to Earth lacks evidence. No archaeological remains have been found to indicate the existence of alien technology or contact between ancient civilizations and beings from other planets. It is true that some ancient cultures described their gods as celestial beings descending from the skies, evoking the idea of visitors from another world. However, from an archaeological perspective, such accounts are considered symbolic representations of natural or cosmic forces. Ancient Sumerian texts describe the Anunnaki as gods who created humanity to cultivate the land and extract resources. According to archaeology, these beings were myths are meant to explain the origins of life and society, rather than to serve as literal accounts of historical events. For this reason, most scholars face significant challenges with the theory of extraterrestrial Anunnaki. Some also argue that ancient myths are complex and that isolating specific elements from their cultural context is problematic. One widely discussed topic is the pyramids. According to mainstream archaeology, Egypt's pyramids do not require extraterrestrial involvement to explain their construction. Scholars agree that the Egyptians possessed a large workforce, knowledge of engineering, and access to local materials. It is believed that a sizable labor force of skilled workers, not slaves, built the pyramids. Evidence from workers' villages and tombs indicates that they were organized into teams and provided with food, shelter, and medical care. The limestone blocks were quarried locally, while the granite used in the inner chambers was brought from Aswan, about 800 kilometers away. Discoveries such as the Diary of Mira suggest that boats and canals were used to transport the stones along the Nile to the construction site. Bas-relief carvings, such as those in the tomb of Jehuti-Hotep, depict sleds used to pull the stones, possibly with water poured in front of them to reduce friction. One theory suggests the use of straight, zigzagging or circular ramps that allowed workers to move stones to higher levels. However, the exact methods used to lift and position the massive stones, especially at the upper levels, remain uncertain. Ongoing archaeological research continues to uncover new information, but without conclusive evidence, The precise techniques used by the ancient Egyptians remain a historical mystery. And with that, we conclude our fascinating journey through the history of the Sumerians, the Anunnaki, and the intriguing alternative theories. Hypotheses such as the existence of hidden alien beings, the Anunnaki as extraterrestrials, or UFOs in biblical texts remain speculative and lack support from conventional science. Nevertheless, there may still be many mysteries waiting to be uncovered and much to learn. Exploring these theories encourages us to stay open-minded, challenge our assumptions, and nurture our curiosity. At the end of the video, add a closing message thanking the viewers for listening and urging them to follow the Pharaoh Code channel, watch future videos, and support us by subscribing, liking, and commenting.